I'm your mayor, Ken Cyber, and it's great to see this turnout. We get asked all the time, what's happening with Northland? So I'm glad that you're here so that we can explain to you how far we've come since this journey that we're on has started. Before I begin, though, I'd like to just make a couple of quick introductions. Some of our council is here. Ari Michael Mondelbaum, if you'd wave, and I see Myron Frazier, our council president, Dan Brightwell, and then from our city administration we have John McRena from our deputy city administrator in the back, Fred Zorn, and our community relations director, Michael Mannion. In order for me to read my notes, I have to take my glasses off, so I hope I haven't missed anybody. At any rate, I wanted to just talk very briefly as a way of introduction tonight about kind of why we're here and how this all came about. We had growing concerns about Northland for some time. As a matter of fact, the last owners of Northland, we had them in to say, we do not want to see the mall fail. What can we do as a city to help you? And a couple of things. They wanted more flexibility with signage. We gave them that. They wanted Greenfield Road fixed. We gave them that. And we turned the tables and said, now, what are you doing? And it was shocking, really, the silence. They said, well, we're spending a lot of money on infrastructure. The mall's we got wires and pipes. But there was no plan to bring new retail to that mall. And that left us really very, very disturbed. And some of the stores at Northland were, you may have shopped there. I shopped Northland to the end. I lived close to the mall. And some of the stores were doing quite well. They were boutique stores. But people were really looking for national retail outlets. And Northland really wasn't offering that. So it came to, as you know, the owners of the mall defaulted on a $31 million loan. And we became very, very concerned when that happened. And of course, the mall went into receivership. And the receiver's job was to figure out what to do next with the property and to reverse the financial situation. Well, they had advertised it for someone to take it over, and there were no really viable plans. Someone wanted to turn the center into a retraining center for felons. We didn't think, and we're looking for the highest and best use for this property. That idea was not the highest and best use for Northland, despite what you may feel about that kind of a program. We also saw that several people expressed interest, but they wanted the city of Southfield to foot the bill to make it happen. We weren't really interested in that. Then we didn't have to look far. Years ago, I know a number of us were downtown Northland, or rather downtown Hudson shoppers, and what an experience that was for us. And then when the store closed in 1983, 84, it took 14 years before it was imploded at public expense and had been scrapped, and one thing after another, a whole number of indignities to that once grand department store. And then we looked to the north to Waterford at Summer Place, that is still a vacant mall with blight, dumping, graffiti, all of the things that hazardous conditions in the mall, and we didn't want that. So Fortunately, the city of Southfield has had an economic development fund going back, I think, about 30 years. And we've used this fund. It's not general fund money. It was money that came to the city from various sources when things were headier as far as local government finance. And we've used this to take down, for instance, the Ramada Hotel on 9 Mile. We put the money in, take the building down, sold the property, got the money back. So with this fund, we decided that we would purchase the mall. And prior to that, we set up a Northland steering committee to oversee what's really an enormous task. I mean, we're talking about a 115-acre property roughly, and we were told that the receiver would sell them all or decide by July 1st. That stretched out for months. The city of Southfield did not take ownership of that property until December 17th. And it may seem very slow to all of you, but we have made tremendous progress considering, in the last 8 months, considering the enormity of this project. For instance, when we took over the mall, we did not own all the property. Hudson's or Macy's owned Macy's, Penny's owned Penny, or Penny's is owned by Triumph Church, Target owned Target, and then there were other issues with the Firestone store, and even there's a little parcel that is owned by Montgomery Ward Holding Company. So we have been, one of the things that we set out to do immediately, besides environmental studies, was to do acquire the other parcels so that we can have a master plan or vision for the property. Fortunately, Macy's was very quick to decide we don't need this, and they donated their store, which is a full city block, to the city of Southfield. That's Target was not so at first, and then we started billing them for security and other issues. And after a while, Target decided, you know, we're not going to get the million something that we want out of this 8 acres and the store building. And so we came to an agreement in March for $650,000 to purchase that store, which is a very good deal. 8 acres at $650,000 plus the newest building on the site. And then we have the JCPenney's building. And that has been very difficult negotiations with Triumph Church, although I want to say that we're very close to an agreement. It's not just, but the thing to understand about the JCPenney building, it is not just the building. The building comes with 1,300 parking spaces. We own the parking, but the easement goes with the building. In other words, we own the parking lot, but we can't. Anybody can use it, but we cannot do anything with it because it's tied to the building. It's not a great arrangement. It was how the owners of Northland years ago brought JCPenney's to the mall. This was an enticement for JCPenney's to become an anchor there. So again, we're very close to an agreement. We have another conversation with Triumph Church tomorrow morning, and we have a pretty good offer on the table that is not, in my opinion, is not the greatest offer for the city, but in the long run, it'll benefit the city greatly. So we are just about finished all the environmental studies. There are a number of hazards there, asbestos, lead, that have to be dealt with. One of the things that we've done in the last 8 months, and they're obviously here tonight, is that we did specs and bid for a design team and hired the same. And they will introduce themselves and the roles that they've played. We also, if you've been down there, we've fenced the property. Again, because we don't want vandals, we don't want scrappers, dumping, all of that. We also have emptied out quite a few things from the property that were left behind. And we have currently an RFQ out for bidders for demolition for the mall. So a lot has happened, but again, this is an enormous task. And so it's not going to, a new city is not going to pop up at 8 Mile and Greenfield next spring. It's going to take time, and I just can't stress that enough. But we're here tonight because in 4 months, the team that we retained experts, and they'll tell you their expertise, has developed what I think is a beautiful vision for this site. It's not a plan, it's a vision. And this will evolve. But as you see this, I just want to add, my personal opinion is that Northland will never be Northland. We'll never have a Northland again. And that it's because when Northland opened, it changed retailing. It became the world model. It's historic. It became the world model in 1954 for retailing. It was much copied. However, retailing has changed again, and significantly. All the online buying, the power centers, the discounting, and so on. It's a whole new game. So you'll never have a mall, or you wouldn't have a department store with 500,000 square feet. They're just not building those anymore. And as you know, Macy's is talking about closing 100 more stores nationally. And again, that reflects the change in retailing that's taking place. But I think it's important that we remember, as we go forward, that we remember its historic significance. Northland changed retailing. Northland also changed Southfield in very profound ways. With the development of Northland, this city became the fastest growing city in the United States, or rather in Michigan, for a number of years. We had this explosion here of population and development. So I am a big proponent of adaptive reuse, finding new uses for some of those spaces at Northland. The concept of the mall is historic. Much of the mall has been so renovated that it's lost its historic value. However, I think that we need to appreciate that history and incorporate it into what comes next. And so adaptive reuse, also through adaptive reuse, we save tremendously on the cost of demolition. If we were to just to clear the site, the estimates are over $10 million. That's huge, and it would add to the cost of the acreage if you go to develop it. So I think we're on the verge of creating something really new. I'm excited and pleased about the plan, and I'm very, very optimistic that out of this we are going to see something stellar that is going to be a reinvention of the site. So I'm going to stop here and turn the floor over to Aaron Dominy, who will outline the vision and the team. And I hope you like it as much as I do. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
So first order of business, housekeeping, can you hear me?
Yes.
The back?
Yes.
Huh?
Yes.
Thumbs up? Okay, good. My name is Aaron Dominy. I'm a principal with OHM Advisors. We are an architecture, engineering, and planning firm headquartered here in Southeast Michigan and Livonia. We have offices all around the Midwest. And we're really pleased to be here tonight to talk to you about this project. For many of us at OHM, and we're over 450 now, this location, this place meant a lot to people at our company. And when we were lucky enough to be retained to do this project, of course the word spreads quickly around the office, we're working on this project, and then we're on the lunch table, water cooler, all the stories are being told. I don't have history here or on this project, but I quickly learned both from the people at OHM and the people I've talked to here. Some of you in the room have already had conversations with you, that this is a special place and a very special community. And so I'm honored to be here to talk to you about the work that we've done on this project. So a little bit about me. I think it's always interesting to know who's talking to you. I am a husband, father of two, actually 5, because I have 2 kids and 3 dogs. And yeah, that's something I might touch on in the presentation. I live in that community down south that you're not allowed to talk about up here. And I'm also an instructor at that school that you're not allowed to talk about up here. So I have many different lenses at which I look at things through as one of the project managers, both from kind of the technical aspect, the family aspect, and then the kind of the best practices, higher education, innovation. What are we doing to do things better as a community, as a country? So one of the things I was thinking about is sitting here listening to the mayor. We're in the library. I have 2 kids. Every time I come to the library, it's about story time, right? You remember that? So I still do that with my 7-year-old. And I'd like to think of this as a story. So I'm going to tell you a story about this project and about the work that we've been doing. But as I think about that, I'm not really thinking it's a news story, because it's the story of Southfield. That's a story that's been written. This is really about the next chapter, right? This is a huge 100+ acre site within Southfield that has the ability to transform your next chapter. And that's the next chapter we've been writing, we've been working on as a team. And so I'd like you to keep an open mind as I go through this. One of the things I always like to do when I start a project is kind of empty the cup. I don't know Southfield. I didn't know the people here, but I've learned a heck of a lot in a short amount of time. And so my cup started to fill up. The things I learned started to fill up. And you'll understand how that happened as I tell this story and talk to you about how we begin authoring this chapter, this next chapter of Northland. So let's talk about that story. One of the things, again, housekeeping I want to ask is that we're going to ask that you hold questions. We have a big audience. I'm going to try to get through the presentation. But what we do have is, after I'm done with the presentation, kind of an open house setup. You can come and look at all the drawings. I'll introduce our team. We'll answer all your questions, and you're going to have an opportunity to give us some feedback. So the mayor kind of stole my thunder a little bit. Thanks, Mayor. But what is this about? It's really about evaluating a development strategy and creating a vision that positions this property to its highest and best use. And once we understand that highest and best use is informed by a number of things. 1, the market, and 2, the intuitive knowledge of this community. And so we've been working on creating that strategy to position the property to its highest and best use for new investment. As we've done that, we have a very deep team. You can imagine a project of this size requires a lot of experts. I'm not going to go through all of our team members. I'll point out one that's here in Southfield, which is Monker Branding. They've been working on the branding. But we have everything from market analysts to environmental specialists to structural engineers to engineers to landscape architects and everywhere in between. Almost every kind of professional you can imagine has been touching this project along this journey. One of those most important pieces is Laura Rodwin and NFL, who've been helping with community relations and public communication. So a little overview about the project. What are the goals that we started with? The mayor talked about some of them. But as you think about this being an iconic historical place, one of those was to stay focused on it. This is an iconic local and regional destination. So we need to be mindful that it needs to be that again. Anything short of that, we're not reaching our goal. We also know that building a site this size, we have to have some very meaningful public space. That was the one thing we've been asking this community about as we've been writing the chapter. We've also been focused on balancing the vehicular and the pedestrian network. So one of the things that we are mindful of from best practices is that we don't want this development to be dominated by the automobile. It needed to be highly flexible to allow the market to respond, incorporate sustainable and innovative solutions. Mayor talked about some of that. And then the adaptive reuse. So this was our schedule. It keeps changing as we go. But my point here is that 4 months, a little over 4 months is how long we've been working on this. And there we are on August 23rd. So a lot's been happening in a very short amount of time. And I think we've made great progress in writing the chapter. We have about 1 more month to go. So we're here to show you some draft concepts. We're going to be refining the concept based on what you tell us, and then we'll come back with the final report to the city. So where have we been? These are some of the major work steps we've completed. We've completed a branding campaign, we've done site analysis, we've talked to stakeholders, we've done a market study, we've had 1 public meeting, here we are at number 2, we've done a design charrette, and then we've been managing public relations continuously through the project. I think we're up to close to 20 stories on this particular project. Public engagement. This is one of the most important pieces of the puzzle. And at the beginning I said there's really 2 things happening here. You kind of become technically informed with what's happening on the sites and the buildings with the environment. But most importantly is we're becoming intuitively informed, that intuitive knowledge of the people who live here. And we've been hard at work in gathering those ideas. One of the things we did early on, and you see some of the stuff on the screen here when I started, was we really wanted to create a brand around this project. How can you identify with what's happening here? And so we put together a branding campaign, and the brand, and you'll continue to see this throughout the course of the work on this project in the public realm, is imagine the possibilities in the heart of it all. So what we're working to do is create a movement around this project. So you'll see it, on the street, you'll see it in the news, and we don't have a name for what this thing could be, but we do have a name for what we're doing. And that's imagine the possibilities in the heart of it all, and we're working to kind of bring this attention to the public realm. Whether it's t-shirts on the web, which we're already on, doing drive-in movie theaters on the site, painting the water tower. How can we create awareness about this project? So what have we been doing to engage the public? Well, we've done a number of things. We've had a public meeting, we've met with stakeholders, we've done design charrette, and we've been online. When you work on a project like this, that's this large and this complex, and we're engaging the public, we're being very mindful of what the questions we're asking. Thank you. We're very focused on the market, right? So when you're trying to do a redevelopment, and I asked Sally Jones and Tom Smith, what do you want to see? And they say an amusement park. Well, that's a great idea, but ultimately at the end of the day, and the mayor said this, the private sector is going to implement this. So the market is extremely meaningful. So we've been really focused on the public realm. What is your experience going to be here versus how many square feet of office space should we have? Or how many restaurants should we have? That's where really we're focused on the market. So this has been really focused on the quality, the character, and your experience as part of the development. So you haven't been necessarily driving the solution, the exact mix of uses, but you've been informing the quality and character of the plan. So we met with a number of stakeholders. Stakeholders are those who have a vested interest or a significant ability to shape the outcome of the project. So the big ones are Providence Hospital, the college, your elected officials, the church. These are folks who are very close to the site, either geographically or because of their leadership role. And so we've made a special step to meet with them. Some of the things they said regarding Northland are up there. Sense of place, walkable, safe, clean, mixed generation. All of these things really, to me, as the planner, one of the project managers, say something for everyone, really. That's what they boil down to, and quality. The uses they talked about were office, restaurants, eateries, craft beverages. I did not put that one in there, so I do enjoy craft beverage. And I sometimes enjoy going to the gym. And then active and passive green space. So the folks that we talk to who are neighbors to this site, whether they own a business or they're at work there, is they want something to do outside of their business or the college or the church. They want an experience near them. Some of the things they mentioned, like ice skating, a band show, just people watching. I think this is a really interesting one. It's not like everybody, that's your activity, you go people watch every day. But what it does say is they want to see people in the space. They want a sense of vibrancy. We also had a public meeting, and we made a kind of a decision, hit a crossroads on this public meeting. And one of the things we talked about was we can come to City Hall and set up and do something where we just very traditional. We went a different route. We went to the Family Fun and Safety Night, because we already had hundreds of thousands of people there. And we met people there, and we asked them about Northland. What do you imagine at Northland? What would you like to see? What kind of public spaces would you like to see? There's some pictures of what happened that day. We kind of had a dream catcher wall where we put all the ideas. We'll do something like that again tonight. And there are hundreds of ideas, and we put them into what we call a word cloud. So the more frequent the idea, the bigger the word. So clean was a very popular word, very popular thing people wanted to see. Multi-purpose, walkable, public art, dining, outdoor water feature, intergenerational, town center, fitness, wellness. These are all things that came up. Two that you may not be able to see as well are family-oriented and safe. I think the experience for many today is that that's kind of an unsafe place. It's so open. There's a lot of foot traffic happening there. And so part of what we need to do is reactivate it. We also asked, what type of public space would you like to see? This is an extremely large site. We've put it up next to other mall sites throughout the country. And in some malls, you could fit 2 of them inside the site. It's so big. So we knew that public space was a big opportunity. So we asked you to kind of vote on that. And here's the ranking. If you look at the total, water feature was number 1, children's areas, multi-purpose space, an amphitheater, vendor space, a natural water feature, active recreation trails, natural areas, and passive space. Make mental note of this because we're going to come back to that. We've also been online, imaginenorthland.com. If you haven't already been there, you can go online. You can see a lot of the news stories, presentations, that type of thing. So there's what it looks like on your website, what do you imagine in Northland. There's questions up there now for you to participate in, and you'll see more information there moving forward. So that's what we've been up to from the public engagement standpoint. We also looked at the market. And one of the things our market analyst said at the very beginning of his presentation and in his reports is that we can no longer extrapolate from the past to project the future. The game has changed. Right? Everybody reading about the new economy in the paper, everything has completely changed, from economic development to housing to who's in the market. You all read about the millennials and the baby boomers, right? That's 165 million people, largest 2 demographics ever to move through the market in the history of the United States, right now. They're all looking for something that is different that we haven't done over the last 50 years. So huge opportunity for it to think differently and try to react to what's happening in the market. So one of the things that we asked our market analyst to look at was, what is the opportunity? So he saw a huge opportunity for residential. We heard this also from our stakeholders, both from the hospital and from the college. Hospitals employing a lot of young professionals who are traveling far distances to work there. The college is also commuter college, and they see an opportunity to attract people to this area. And a lot of the housing stock that is here hasn't been built in the last 10 years. Why? Because the market's there, right? And so now you're seeing a lot of people catching up, a lot of new product happening, and we see an opportunity for residential here as well. We also see a huge opportunity for office space. That's both in terms of kind of an integrated commercial office where you have retail and office together, an office campus, and retail on the perimeter. So there's a lot of numbers up there. We're not a market analyst. The point is, we've looked at the opportunity, we've identified what it is. A lot of that has to do with supporting the activity of the hospital and their growth, and attracting new opportunities like R&D opportunities. We also looked at retail and lodging and some additional recommendations. I'm here to tell you this is not going to be the retail power center it was. If you came here and I just popped your balloon, I'm sorry. But that's just not the world anymore, right? We talked about looking in the past. You don't see new malls being developed like this. Even the great town centers, and one of our consultants who's working with us in the back has done a lot of these projects. The retail is actually a smaller piece. It's not the big box, large format anymore. So we're looking at 100 to 125,000 square feet for that use. We see an opportunity for lodging. And then we also see an opportunity for some ancillary uses like assisted living with memory care. We did a lot of analysis on that piece and we see that as an opportunity. Daycare integrated as part of this. And then medically assisted health, wellness, and fitness. So I happened to tear my ACL last year. I spent this morning an hour and a half doing that, where I went to my surgeon and then I went to the fitness facility next door. You have a huge opportunity to do something like that. So when you put that all in the mixing bowl and you put color on it, it starts to look like this. The point is, this is the residential. It's taking up a big piece of the program because the site's so big and we see a big opportunity in the market for that. We also looked at the site. So that was the market, that was the public process, then we got into really what's going on this site. And we looked at the linkages. The linkages was really key for us. So to orient you on the site, the hospital's up here, college is over here, and we see huge opportunities for kind of these linkages to those major institutions as well as to the neighborhoods and then to the south. So we're looking at, and this is a diagrammatic concept, it doesn't mean a heck of a lot, it's really my backwash talking point, in that we're really thinking about how this site connects to the community. We also look at adaptive reuse, like the mayor talked about. Two things jumped out to us immediately. And there's a lot of these big square buildings on there that don't have a lot of value, they weren't built a long time ago. But there are two that are very interesting. The Hudson building, because of its iconic significance. And the other building we grabbed onto was the power plant. It may not look like a lot from the outside, but on the inside, this is one cool space. And so these are the kinds of creative spaces that artists, local food, restaurants are trying to get into. Has a lot of character, and so we thought that was something that might be worth saving. And then here's a historical view of the Hudson's building. So at the end of the day, it's not going to look like this, right? It's going to have to be deconstructed, gutted, reworked. But when we think about its adaptive reuse, the one thing we keep coming back to is it's iconic and the architecture is significant. So however it's redone, it should be reflective of its historical significance. In the details, there's a good floor-to-ceiling ratio in here. The structural integrity is strong. So from that standpoint, it makes sense to reuse it as well. The other big question, and some of you may know this, is that this facility was developed with a series of massive tunnels under it. So a huge design challenge for us. Got the opportunity to go down in some of these tunnels. It is November year-round down there, about 40 degrees. They warned us of that. I didn't wear the jacket, but I should have. But really interesting piece of history down there. The challenge for us is what do you do with them, right? Build over them, as you can see here, fill them in. We started to create a lot of design concepts around how do you deal with that. We even thought, what if we just lower it and we bring the street down to that level? We're looking creatively at this because it's going to take a lot of money to fill those tunnels in. It's a lot of dirt. The joke around our studio table was that there's not enough dirt in southeast Michigan to fill these tunnels because there's a lot of dirt. At the end of the day, we just thought we'd work with it. Okay? So fill some of it in, try to work with some of it that we think is useful, the grade that is useful, and we can actually do it in a meaningful way. So we started to play around this idea of this central green space. And that really supported a lot of the things that you as a community told us were important. Public space, space for gathering. And then here we kind of came up with another version of that. How do we step it down? How is it arranged? How do the roads come into it? So these are all the things we're doing as we're thinking. So 4 months in 20 minutes, rather than 60 years in 4 months, play on words there. That's what we've been working on. It's a lot of work that's been happening behind the scenes. So we get to the fun part, which is creating the plan, which many of you probably want to see what's been happening. If you haven't already, I see some of these folks here who were joined us the other night at the council meeting. So we put that all on the table. I always like to think of creating a development plan as baking a cake, right? You get the milk, you get the flour, you get the sugar, you get the oil, you get the eggs, you put it all on the counter, you find your recipe, and then you have to bake the cake. So everything I just talked about was gathering the ingredients and figuring out what kind of cake you want to have. Then we have to bake it. So we all sit down and we work through a number of iterations. This is just all the trace paper, all the ideas. We've thought this thing through 20, 30, 40 times with the leadership, with our team, with the sub-consultants. We've tested it. And we came to a point where we felt we had a pretty good idea of what we were doing. There were 7 principles that we felt really drove the concept I'm about to share with you. So these are the reoccurring themes that came through every piece of investigation I just talked about. Number 1, strong pedestrian and vehicular network. Dynamic public spaces, which unify the entire development. The thoroughfare system, the roadways, which help define development districts. So how do the roads set up development blocks? This is not going to be one project. This will be a series of projects. So how does the road help us do that? We wanted to complement what's already there, the neighborhoods, the businesses, areas to the south. Incorporate innovative and sustainable solutions. Today, folks, you're not doing that. You're not thinking about the future. Every time I do a survey and I talk to folks under the age of 30, this idea of being green and sustainable is one of their most important issues. And those are the folks we're going to try to attract here and make home here. So we want to be sure that we're creating places that is meaningful to them. Capitalize on the unique site characteristics, the topography tunnels, I talked about that. And then identify and integrate the adaptive reuse opportunities like Hudson's. So the first thing we do is we start to think about those connections, right? To the hospital, to the college area, and we just start to draw these crazy fat lines on the paper, and we start to think about a framework. Then we also started to think about this kind of the wheel and the spokes coming out of that central green space where we need to address the grade in the middle of the tunnels and then radiate out to the outer portions of the site through a series of green linkages. So that was something we also were thinking about as the plan came together. Moving down the line, or the road, no pun intended, we put the road framework in. So you can see how we purposely align roads with existing roads. We try to connect up to the hospital. We try to align towards the college. And we try to create these development blocks that could support the market study and the mix of uses we wanted to integrate. So then we end up with something like this. This is what we call the district plan. Those series of colors will make sense in a minute, but essentially we're putting color on the plan that says this area is for this particular kind of use, this area is for this kind of use. It became very clear to us that these became their own special district. Even though they're the parts, as you put the parts together, the whole becomes significant. And these districts really add to the character and quality of development. This red district we'll call the shopping district. I'll talk about each one of these in a second. This orange district, we're really calling a lifestyle district. This is where a lot of the activity happens. We have the yellow area, which is the Central Park, an innovation district, and then the Park Greenway in the middle. Then what we did was we took that district and we applied what we thought was a development pattern that matched the principles, best practices, and everything we've heard and learned through the process. And we came up with a concept plan that looks something like this. This is a significant change from what you have. This is no longer a standalone big box retail center. This becomes a community where people are going to work, a community where people can live, people can come enjoy if you're not working or living there, where entertainment happens, and there's a lot of activity going on. Some of the numbers are showcased up there to show you some of the types of uses of the The cool thing about this, and I think it's really timely considering what we just weathered as a country, is that it's like planting a field of crops. Plant all soybeans and you get the soybean bug, you're not harvesting anything that year. With this many uses happening and integrated into here, it becomes very resilient, highly flexible, a lot of things happening, and which allows it to be timeless, right? You think about some of the great places like some of the neighborhoods in Detroit, downtown Detroit. It's coming back because the mix of uses, the pattern is timeless. And so a lot of those principles are starting to be applied here. I'm going to talk about what's happening here with each district. So I talked about the districts, I'll give you a little bit more explanation. One of the things you'll see on the pictures, these pictures are being representative of kind of the character. Doesn't mean you're going to get a target there. It means these are the types of character that we think will be embedded in the design standards and the development program for the site. So what I see continuously through these pictures is what you told us is quality. So this is the shopping district. This is where you'll have a mix of convenient retail uses. So whether it's a Target, a place to get your hair done, it could be a dry cleaner, it could be a CVS pharmacy. These are those types of activities that are happening there. Then you have the lifestyle district. So if you think of the amazing town center, downtown Royal Oak, Plymouth, where you have that vitality and that cool factor happening, that's this district right in here. Where you have a mix of uses, everything's up on the road. These are 2, 3, 4-story buildings. We're not talking skyscrapers, really anywhere in here. Kind of low-rise and mid-rise buildings. A lot of attention paid to the street, to the public realm, and to the quality and character of that place. Then we have what we call the Central Park District, which includes Hudson's. You'll notice the idea was that you almost hollow out that building, create a central courtyard. Front that on this significant green Central Park, which is roughly 8 acres in size. And this water feature here, which you see there, actually starts to work with that grade. And it's designed in the future to manage stormwater and kind of rise up, come down, but allow everything to front on there. And so that's pretty cool from a design standpoint because we create a lot of value for everybody fronting the green. This is all residential. Fronting the green in here, together with the Hudson building. Then you have the Parks Network, which we've highlighted in green. So you have the main central point, and then you kind of radiate out these different arms from the Central Park, kind of the complete street, where you can walk on the street, trees, greenery, that type of thing happening. This actually, the original design was based off of Fort Worth Park down in Atlanta. Where they've done something like this, they had a similar problem. They managed stormwater creatively, and they created a pretty cool Central Park gathering space in the heart of the development. Then you have what we call kind of the innovation district, which is, this is where you have the larger format office space, medical office, R&D. You could have the lodging fit within the context of this district, some housing. But this is really the place where we're creating opportunities for new businesses to come in and then support those businesses with the uses that are needed to support them like lodging. So we put the master plan all together with the districts. This is our draft concept to date, okay? So you have a series of districts, you have a mix of uses, you have a significant public space component and a series of public spaces. You have a new quality and character to a place that's pretty different from what you have now, all informed by the people in the community, the market, our analysis, kind of balanced in a way that I think creates a pretty cool cake. And so we're not done. This presentation is really to inform you what we've been doing, to give you a chance to look at it, to tell us what you think, give us feedback on the concept. We also put it into a massing view to give you some idea of, as we start to move forward, this gets refined even more. What does that look like, kind of a three-dimensional view? There you can see the Hudson building there in the middle, that Central Park. I told you to keep in the back of your mind how you voted on the public realm pieces. Almost every piece of that's incorporated in here, from an amphitheater to a water feature to walking trails to family-oriented to clean to active water features. This is really the pun intended, our brand, at the heart of it all for the future development. And you get a different look at it. So at the end of the day, we're not necessarily designing every piece of this, but we're putting the vision, the plan, and the standards in place so that when the private sector reacts and comes to do the project, they have to respond to this. Without anything like this, all the city can do is react. we were reacting during the project. People were knocking on the door saying, oh, I want to do this project, I want to do that project. This coordinates all. If we didn't do that, you might end up with a drugstore over here, McDonald's over there, a shoe store over here, and it begins to look like everywhere else. So this takes a little bit more time, a little bit more effort, but at the end of the day, it allows the city to be much more proactive than just reacting to whatever comes, which is what a lot of communities have been doing. However, a lot of communities are also now rethinking that approach and doing this. So that's part of the chapter we've been writing. That's the story for you today in the library of what we've been up to. And now we want to know what you think. So at this point in time, it's taken about an hour to tell that story between the mayor and myself. We have a series of boards, some over here, some in the back. They have the images that I've just presented on the concept. And I'm going to introduce and ask our team to stand up so you can see who they are. And we're going to position ourselves around the room. And you can come ask us questions. We have 2 tables up here with comment cards and 2 tables in the back. We're going to ask you to fill those out. There's really 2 questions we're asking. What do you like best about what we've done? That's the good part. Be sure to fill that card out. And then, what do you want to see change? So if there's something you don't like or we missed, we want you to tell us that as well. So we're going to fill out these cards, and then we're going to start putting them up around the room. I think on this wall specifically, right? On this wall. So guys, you guys up over here. There's markers up here. There's markers back there. And so I'm going to ask our team to stand up real quick so you can see who we are, both OHM staff and city staff. So we have Forrest, Edna, Laura, Fred, Jim, Tom, Shelley. So a lot of us, some of us have name badges on, those who are better than others. We're going to be standing next to these boards. Most of us are the ones with suits on, so we should be easy to pick out. And we really appreciate you coming. Come up and talk to us, fill out these cards, talk to city staff, talk to myself. Go online, you can ask questions online, or post your comments online. And we really appreciate you coming. We wanted you to come up and talk to us and ask us questions and tell us what you think. So thank you very much for listening. We look forward to talking to you more. And I'm going to ask Forrest and maybe Michael and Rhett to turn around the board. And then you can all come up and get a closer look. And stick around for the next hour. We'll be here for the next hour. So thank you very much.